When you think about the early internet, that whole explosive dot-com era, your mind probably goes to the flashy websites and the stories of overnight millionaires. But behind all that sizzle, there were these unsung digital heroes, right? The foundational tech that actually made it all work. And today, we're going to talk about one of the most important of them all. So, what was it? What was the engine humming away in the background, powering all those websites, all that brand new e-commerce, and really the digital dreams of a whole generation? Well, the answer? It's probably not what you're thinking. It wasn't a browser, it wasn't a search engine, it was a database. And to really get why, we've got to rewind the clock a bit, back to the mid-1990s. The tech world was deep in the middle of what people were calling the database wars, this super fierce competition to see who would get to manage the world's most critical information. And bam, right in the middle of this huge corporate showdown, a totally new battlefield just pops up out of nowhere, the internet. And this new front, it presented a challenge that the existing database technologies, well, they just weren't prepared for. Not at all. I mean, just look at the mismatch here. It's kind of crazy. On one side, you've got your traditional databases, and they were great, for handling numbers and text inside a company's private little network. But then on the other side, you've got the wild, unpredictable, global internet, which was demanding stuff like images, sound clips, and it needed to handle a massive, unpredictable number of people. The old tools, they just weren't going to cut it. So yeah, the industry was screaming for a new kind of database, one that was built from the ground up for this new internet age. And one of the biggest players in the game was about to step up and deliver it. The year was 1997, and Oracle, which was already this giant in the enterprise world, drops version 8 of its flagship database. And believe me, this wasn't just some minor update. This was a massive turning point for the entire industry. I mean, the way they described it at the time really says it all. This was the release that carried relational technology into the internet era. That's a bold claim, right? But it was one that Oracle was totally ready to back up with some truly game-changing new features. Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. What made this thing so special? Well, it really comes down to 3 core innovations that made Oracle 8 the absolute go-to database for the web, and just blew the competition away. First up, these object relational features. Now I know, that sounds super technical, but the idea behind it was revolutionary. For the first time, a major database could actually store complex stuff, like a product photo for an online store or a music clip, right there alongside the normal text and numbers. It basically freed the database from just being this boring old spreadsheet. And just think about what that unlocked. Suddenly, the floodgates were open. You could build these dynamic e-commerce sites with actual product images, create these rich, cool online applications, and put multimedia content right onto a web page. And it was all managed by one powerful database in the background. All right, the second key innovation was something called partition tables. Because you got to remember, the internet meant data was just exploding. I mean, growing bigger and bigger, faster and faster. Partitioning was Oracle's incredibly smart solution to handle this massive, unprecedented scale. Think of it like a giant global phone book. If you had to search through the whole thing every single time, it would be incredibly slow, right? But what if you split that giant book into smaller books, one for each city? That's partitioning. It meant a database could grow to an enormous size without just grinding to a halt. And that was absolutely crucial for any serious web application. And third, the final piece of the puzzle, Java integration. By the late 90s, Java was really becoming the programming language for building web apps. So by building native support for Java right into the database itself, Oracle sent this crystal clear message to developers everywhere. Hey, if you're building for the web, we're the database you need. And when you put all 3 of those things together, boom, that's the result. It made Oracle the undisputed backbone for the most demanding applications of this new digital economy. Everything from online stores to the very first internet banks. Okay, so we've got the tech, but this stuff didn't just stay in a lab. It went out into the real world and directly fueled one of the most dramatic economic expansions in modern history. You can almost watch it happen in real time here. Oracle 8, the internet database, comes out in 97. By 98, now that there's a scalable, multimedia-ready database available, e-commerce and online banking just explode into the mainstream. And by 1999, all that momentum helps accelerate the entire digital economy into the frenzy that we now call the dot-com boom. So here's the bottom line. It is not an exaggeration, not at all, to say that Oracle 8 was
the database behind the dot-com boom. It was the critical infrastructure that literally thousands of startups and big companies used to build their internet dreams on. But what about today? You might be thinking, okay, that was then, so what? What's the lasting impact of a single database release from over 2 decades ago? Well, it's actually way bigger than you might think.
What this release really did was fundamentally change the role of the database. It marked the exact moment the database evolved from being this quiet, back-office system for a company's internal data into the dynamic, powerful engine for this new world of global online applications.
So when you boil it all down, its legacy is huge. Oracle 8 proved that the relational model could actually work at internet scale. It paved the way for the rich multimedia web that we all just take for granted today. It totally transformed Oracle's own identity from an enterprise company to a web pioneer. And ultimately, it set the stage for all the database technologies that came after it.
Which leaves us with this really fascinating question to chew on, right? We've seen how a single pivotal piece of tech like Oracle 8 could define an entire era of innovation. It really makes you wonder, what's the foundational technology that's quietly being built right now, the one that's going to define the next great technological boom?